guys, this is Andre Touchy Feely. You're listening to the Verbal Scrap Podcast. Let's get weird.
This is the Shark, Anthony Avila. You're listening to Verbal Scrap.
This is Justin, the Raw Deal Basement. You're listening to Verbal Scrap.
This is Nan Fan, and you're listening to the Verbal Scrap Podcast. I'm a fighter. That's what I'm going to do. I'm going to go in there. I'm going to fight.
Hey, this is Dave Hirschbein, MMA Gold, and you're listening to the Verbal Scrap.
I've worked so hard to do what I got to do in here. I took so much blood for this sport. I took so much pain, everything for the sport.
Hey, y'all, this is Zeke Johnston. You're listening to SRMMA.com Verbal Scrap. Stay tuned. They got some good stuff coming up.
It's Jay Watt from SRMMA.com. We're here on the Verbal Scrap Podcast talking to MMA Gold manager Dave Hirschbein. How you doing today, my friend?
Very well, Johnny. Thanks for having me.
You always sound so silky smooth. If you look at my waves, they're way bigger. Yours are always so cool and collected. How do you, keep yourself sane with all the guys that you have, all the stuff you got going on with MMA Gold? I mean, what do you do to kind of get away from the sport?
To get away from the sport when I'm not focused on MMA?
When you're not focused on MMA, what are you doing to just kind of back up and take a breath?
You know, honestly, when I'm not focused on MMA, I'm typically planning for my next day, which involves MMA. And that's the honest-to-God truth. I can't get enough of it. I bore my family with it. I bore all my friends with it. I am an MMA junkie, diehard.
I can feel you on that because I do always want to talk about MMA, and there's only a few friends I can really chat with that are into it. Most of them are like, that's great, so we're going to do something else? That's awesome. So I had a few things I wanted to talk to you about. A lot of big-name guys for you, been able to pull out victories lately, a lot of good things happening. I wanted to ask you about MMA Pink first. I had a chance to talk to Aspen Ladd, who was also victorious at WFC 6. One of the faces of the new brand, the new shirts. Tell us a little bit more. She said it, supports the breast cancer awareness and stuff like that. It sounds, very, very noble. Tell us more about the company itself, what you're doing with MMA Pink, where fans can get it, stuff like that.
Sure. MMA Pink is actually a playoff of MMA Gold. If you were to look at the traditional MMA Gold logo, it's just reversed with MMA Pink. So I was fortunate enough to work with Johnny Cernucan from Doing Life magazine. He created the logo, actually the original logo for MMA Gold. It was his idea. I give all the props to him. It's been seen very well. Basically, it is a fight brand to promote women's MMA. Women's MMA is on the rise. I think the whole Ronda Rousey thing has been incredible for our sport. Dana White's promoting it heavily, and we just happen to have a female at our gym, the MMA Gold Fight Gym in Folsom, California. That's a phenomenal fighter. She's an ambassador to the sport. She trains her ass off, and if I were to be a fighter, she is exactly the mentality that I would want to go into the cage with. I have never seen anybody so perfectly capable of what she's about to do every time she steps in the cage. Secondly, I partnered with Women's Breast Cancer Awareness. I do want to promote breast cancer. I think it's an important cause, and I think it's a greater cause than MMA. So to take MMA, to take breast cancer awareness, blend them together, and use Aspen as the face of women's MMA, or I should say MMA Pink, I just think it all blends very well, and it works for what we're trying to achieve.
I know fans can come into the Folsom MMA gym and buy some of the merchandise. Is the MMA Pink stuff also up on the MMA Gold website?
I've got the signature shirt on the MMAGold.com website, but traditional fans can go to MMAPink.com, and that's where they can purchase, the various goods. My business partner, Heather Mendieta, has come out with a whole new line. Heather is phenomenal. She's also heads up my PR side of the business. So anytime we want to go on the, some of the bigger shows here in Sacramento and go on TV, she's been fantastic to partner with and really showcase MMA Gold fighters in a nice way.
Well, you've been partnering with a few guys lately, bringing a few new people onto the crew, including Braden and stuff like that. A lot of good people. Also, Folsom MMA has been trying to do their renovations, expanding. The team's growing. What do you think about the gym and the status that it is now? What do you guys got going on? And how are you guys looking to advertise to the public and stuff as well?
Well, like any, traditional fight camp, we are a closed fight camp. It is by invitation only. We don't want people just to show up. Typically, most of our fighters come to us through referrals. And that's important to us to make sure that it's a right fit for our team. I'm very fortunate to work with some very key training staff there. First and foremost, Jim West is our head instructor. He heads up the submission grappling program for us. Jim is a phenomenal instructor under Terry Maxwell. He's a brown belt who Terry rolls to Cassio Warnick, who's very well known here in Sacramento. But Jim is just a fantastic individual. He's got a heart of gold, and on the side we have a personal friendship. Jim is one of my very good friends. So to be able to work with my friend in an industry that I love and that he loves, we share the same passion in building our fighters. We've got Alex Grunder there as well. Alex is our head wrestling coach. He's from Iowa State University. Just a fantastic individual, runs a very tough practice. Anybody that's shown up to our Tuesday night practices, I'm sure, would attest to that. Of course, we've just brought in Justin Castrillo, who's a former MMA fighter. He's got a strong wrestling background, and he really just knows the MMA game overall. We've got Mike Guy, who's one of our pro boxers. He teaches our boxing classes Mondays and Wednesdays. He's actually going to be making his debut for
Yeah, you
West
were telling me
Coast
about
Fighting. Yeah, I'm very excited about that. Anybody that's traded punches with Mike knows it's not fun, and it should be interesting to see who his opponent is, and props to whoever is stepping up. It's pretty cool. Finally, we got MF Beck, who runs our Muay Thai program. So if you look at all of our instructors, we just have a very well-rounded program. Our athletes enjoy coming in, they enjoy training hard, and we enjoy cross-training with our affiliate gyms because of that.
Well, I wanted to ask you about West Coast 7. Like you said, you had a lot of guys coming up on it, including a boxing instructor. I mean, tell us more about the matchups that are definitely going to be happening in the amateur ranks as far as West Coast 7 is concerned, and what you're hoping to that your guys do at this event.
Yeah, of course, like I said, we've got Mike Guy, who's going to make his debut. We've also got an interesting matchup. It's more of a grudge matchup. If anybody that knows Michael Christensen, they just know he's a character. He's the
cool cat, yeah.
He is a cool cat. He's the Chael Sonnen of our region. But honestly, I'm asked sometimes, why in the hell would you represent Michael Christensen? He just doesn't seem to fit the MMA Gold mold. Because I do try and keep it classy. I do try and keep it professional with my organization. And Michael is a little bit outside the norm. But I tell everybody the same thing. That kid is one of the most polite, respectful guys I know on my crew. And so what if he wants to talk a little crap to people? Doesn't bother me. He's not saying it about myself. He's not saying it about my family. And honestly, he's not saying it about my friends. So if he wants to do that, let him do that.
Every time I've talked to him, he's been really respectful too. So I see the stuff he puts on his social media and stuff like that. It's much different than when you talk in person. But like you said, he's really respectful in person. So, and he's a great fighter. I mean, I really like his wrestling skills inside the cage. I mean, what do you think about some of the other guys involved with West Coast 7? Do you have any amateurs on the card as well?
Yeah, with our affiliate camp, Standalone up in Chico under Jason Peets and Kyle Lima, we've got Benito Lopez making his debut return back from Jackson's MMA. Everyone's excited to see what he's learned down there. I have full confidence in Benito. He's got a really tough matchup. Brandon Ware went up to Oregon and found Sean McGee, who's basically 8-4, I believe. Tough kid, Golden Gloves boxer out of Chicago, I'm told. Real tough matchup, but that's the kind of matchup we wanted for Benito. It was time for him to take on a very tough opponent. From what I understand, the kid wanted to go pro, and we were able to basically keep it as an amateur fight because Benito is not ready to go pro. He's still very young in his career. He's just 19, so we're very fortunate to have that matchup.
Well, I wanted to ask you about his time at Jackson's camp. I mean, what do you see in the gym that's anything different, from Benito? Do you see a different mentality? Do you see it equating over to his skills? I mean, since his time there, have you had a chance to check him out or at least talk to him and kind of got a mental perspective of what he learned there?
And I'll be honest, he was there for just over 2 months. So did he come back and have all these new tools and tricks? Yeah, he's got a few things that, he's certainly learned. But what I think he came back with was just being more of a man. He went out there and spent 65 days on his own. He got his ass out of bed every day, or I should say most days, made it down to the gym, and he got to train with guys like Clay Guida, Johnny Jones Bones, Diego Brandao. I mean, the list goes on and on and on. And, we Carlos Condit, we saw it all on his Facebook. But what he came back with was just more of a mentality of being a man and what it's like to leave your hometown, go train somewhere else, and come back. So for that, I commend him, really more so than what did he learn down at Jackson's.
Well, I wanted to ask you about West Coast Fighting 6. You had a wealth of MMA Gold fighters that were victorious, including Waltz. I really enjoyed watching his fight. It's rather quick, but what do you think about the performance that your guys were able to put on the card, and how do you hope it equates to their future success?
Yeah, Waltz looked fantastic. I think he choked his guy out, put him to sleep in about, 47 seconds?
Real quick, yeah.
Yeah, Aspen Ladd. Phil Flathers and I actually put that fight together, and I was shocked. That girl was tough, and I think Aspen was surprised too by that fight. That chick wanted to stand and trade. That was her game plan. Phil told me after the fight that was entirely their plan. Our plan obviously is, hey, let's get that fight to the ground. I think the crowd was entertained, but bottom line, very challenging fight for Aspen. We were victorious. Aspen now moves to 5-0. She'll make her next return October 5th for Ultimate Reno Comet Rick Hollop. And then, of course, that night we had the Jason Peets fight. Or I'm sorry, Jason Peets. We had Jason Powell, who's under Jason Peets, of course. But we had Jason Powell fight Solomon from Alpha Male. That fight was great.
Was that the amateur lightweight title?
That was the amateur lightweight title. Obviously, there was a bit of some controversy at the end. It was an interesting fight. Personally, in my opinion, yeah, I felt Jason won that fight. As you saw with the announcement, Solomon won the fight at the end. Jason goes by the name The Gentleman. He went over to Solomon. He shook his hand. I nodded at Solomon. We walked out of the cage. We didn't say anything. Not 30 seconds later, we were called back in saying there was a mistake. The belt was taken from Solomon. It was given back to Jason. We did our pictures, and we walked out of there.
Well, I wanted to ask you about standalone. You had touched on it previously. A lot of guys, including Benito, Jason, have been giving a lot of credit to Jason Peets and standalone, what they've been able to do. You said now you've been partnering with them as an affiliate, and can tell us more and tell the fans more what to expect from your fighters.
Yeah, I mean, it's no secret what we're doing down at Folsom. We are building a program, and obviously we've got a lot of good, very capable amateurs and in our pros there too. But it's important to have a cross-training program. We do train with Carnage. So Jason and I, Jason Peets from Standalone, about a month ago, we've always had a nice friendship, a very civil friendship. But as I started to work with Josh Hinkle and Benito Lopez, and they were introducing me to more and more of their higher caliber fighters, it just came to the point where Jason and I decided, hey, let's put this down on paper. Let's make a formal partnership. Let's start our fighters cross-training. So this thing is fairly new to us. It's only been a month. Anthony Fluffy Hernandez has been there a few times on his own already, which I commend. But tomorrow we're actually taking about 7 MMA Gold fighters and some of our better fighters. We're taking them up to Chico, and we're going to do a cross-training session at 11 a.m. Then, of course, we'll get back to our gym for 4:30 training. But this is going to be a usual thing going forward. Jason will start sending us fighters down our way. We'll start sending him fighters. And it's just a nice thing that fighters can cross-train. We're not going to be fighting each other per se, so we might as well get the benefit of the training amongst each other.
Well, I had a few more MMA questions, but first I wanted to get to your answers on our hashtag game. You're involved with this. Now, I know right now currently you have a beautiful family, a fantastic wife, so this is totally not now. I'm talking about, back in the day when you were listening to Whitesnake, rocking the leather jacket, Camaro. Hashtag we can't date if. Now, back in your college days, high school, wherever it was when you were, swatting away the honeys. What would be something when they came your way that was like, no, there's no way you're talking to me with that?
We can't date if you're a lawyer.
Oh, ouch.
My wife will love me for this. So my ex-girl, the girl before my wife of 13 years, she was an attorney. She was a type A. I think I'm type A. And I tell you, 2 type A's, male, female, it does not work.
Well, second hashtag. My guilty pleasure is, I threw a few out there, some TV shows I like to watch, but you can really go anywhere with it. Something you like to stuff your face with. Maybe, you tell your family you're going to the gym and you just sit on the treadmill for a minute and then leave. What's your guilty pleasure? What do you do that you kind of keep secret from the world, but secretly makes you happy?
Well, honestly, I do travel quite a bit with my fighters, and anybody that knows me that knows when I'm back in my room at night, and whether you're staying in my room or you're coming by and knocking on the door, I'm either watching one of 2 things. I'll be watching MMA. Bottom line, I'm always watching some type of MMA. Or 2, I'm watching Entourage. I cannot get enough of Entourage. I continually watch those. They're up to Series 8. I don't think they're coming back, so every time I get to Series 8, I just wrap right back to Series 1.
Now, are you like, do you actually, because there's 2 types of people. There's people that religiously watch the TV show. They're like set down on the TV every day of the week that it comes on, and there's guys like me, like Netflix junkies. What type are you? How do you like to binge on your TV?
Yeah, I'm 100% Netflix junkie. I can't sit through commercials. I can't sit through a DVR. My wife claims I have ADHD. I tend to believe it. My mind is constantly racing. Therefore, I've got to get the DVD and just play.
Well, I wanted to ask a few more MMA questions. We had Lethal in studio. What did you think about his Antonio McKee matchup? When now that he was able to get the victory, moving on, what do you think it does for him in his career?
Honestly, when it came to that matchup, from the day I told Lewis, hey, we're fighting Antonio, I think I called him up and he was golfing, which is a usual occurrence when I seem to call him. But he says, great, let me get back to my game now. And the thing is that I take away from that, it sounds kind of funny, but the thing is, Lewis is a competitor. He's been competing his entire life. It started with wrestling, and he's into all these different sports. So for him, it's just competition. I don't think he views it as a fight. I think he views it as competition. He wants to fight the best guys in the world, hence you heard in his last interview. So it's a pleasure to be around that type of personality. Those are the kind of guys I want to work with.
Well, without giving too much away, I know you really can't. Is there any thoughts as to when you'd like him to be back in the cage? I mean, around the type of arena in which you want him to get out there? Is there a timetable, a couple weeks, a couple months? What are you guys looking at?
Well, I can't comment on his next opponent yet. I do know who his opponent is, but I'm going to hold that back. I'll allow you to break that news when the time is right.
Can't wait.
We are waiting for a bout agreement, but if I was a betting man, I'd put him at the end of the year where we'll see Lewis back in the cage. We need to see some fights shake out in the World Series of Fighting right now. Once that is done, we'll have a better idea in terms of time frame. But again, yeah, I'm familiar with who his opponent probably will be, but we're going to reserve that answer until the time is right.
Well, last thing I wanted to ask you is about Josh the Juggernaut Appelt. He obviously took Bellator by storm, winning really quick. I haven't heard from him in a while. Do you guys have any plans for him moving forward? Any thoughts? Any new updates that you'd like to give?
Yeah, like Lewis, Josh is just one of my very favorite fighters on the crew. He's such a good person. He's a family man. Everything about him, he goes in at it 100%. With his current injury, if you're following him on Facebook or Twitter even, it's unfortunate, the timing. He was grappling with Vinny Magalish over at Syndicate MMA in Vegas about, I don't know, maybe 6 weeks ago. He got locked up with Vinny. There was an accident. I'm not going to comment specifically on what went down, but bottom line, he is in rehab. He is making tremendous progress. Again, if I'm a betting man, we put Josh back in the cage first quarter of 2014 for Bellator.
Well, I've really appreciated your time here. Do you have any thank yous or shout outs you'd like to give before we let you go, Dave?
Yeah, I talked about obviously the trainers at the MMA Gold Fight Camp, of course, the trainers at Standalone, Jason Peets, Kyle Lima. I want to shout out my business partners, Jeff Parrish, who's a key consultant to me. I know he does some consulting for Brandon Ware at West Coast. Jeff is just a phenomenal, very intelligent individual that I'm able to work with. Of course, my own personal attorney, Scott Cote, who I'm able to reach out to and ask, my own business litigation type questions. It's good to be able to have someone like that in my corner. My business partner for MMA Pink, Heather Mendieta, who's just a fantastic individual. She's also in charge of public relations, so again, we can use her to help our fighters get more exposure with mainstream news outlets. And then, of course, Braden Clements, who I've taken on as a junior broker agent for MMA Gold. Braden's fantastic. Braden's where I was about 3.5 years ago getting into the sport in terms of his enthusiasm. I like what Braden brings to the table. He shares the same passion and love for the sport that I do. And what I like about Braden the most, he's not looking to profit off the fighters. Our entire system is based on not profiting off fighters. We don't make any money in the region. Anybody that knows my system knows we don't make money in the region. We do it for the love of the sport.
Well, I wanted to give a shout-out to you myself. MMA Gold has been an integral part in SRMMA, and I really appreciate all the stuff you've been able to work with us on, and I really hope that we're able to bring a lot more positive news to the brand in the future, and especially with the route that you guys are going, and a lot of the top guys, they're going to the bigger, better shows, and that's always good to hear that guys from this region are moving on to make national news. And you can check out MMApink.com and MMAGold.com for more information.
Yeah, hey, Johnny, I just want to say thank you for everything you've done. You've covered me now and my fighters for, I think we've known each other 6-8 months, and you and I have just made fantastic media partners in terms of what you bring to the table with my fighters. I got a lot of love for you, Johnny. You and Richard, you guys are great. I do want to shout out some of our key sponsors to MMA Gold. I can't do it without Kinsey from Century MMA. You absolutely are the man. You take care of every single MMA Gold fighter. I can't thank you enough, Kinsey. Jocko Athletics, unbelievable organization. They really understand my passion for MMA. They supply us with a lot of our gear. Again, my fighters are very beneficial and grateful because of that relationship we have with Jocko. Gamma Labs has just come on. Amazing. I just can't say enough about Gamma Labs and what they're currently doing for us. West Coast Nutrition, Brandon Ware. You got to go to WCNstores.com. Brandon is the man, the owner of West Coast, the owner of West Coast Nutrition. Just runs a fantastic organization with Brian and James. Of course, we got BAMP Fight Gear. Love those guys. Blood Happens, Rick Kolb, he's the man. And of course, Johnny Wah, SRMMA.com.